This Is Us creator Dan Fogelman returns with his latest project, and it shares a lot of the same hallmarks as This Is Us, including intricate storytelling featuring flashbacks, intense family drama, lots of character development, and Sterling K. Brown. Let's talk about Hulu's Paradise. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my TV review for Paradise. This just wrapped season 1 on Hulu not too long ago, but ABC is showing these episodes every Monday night. So there's still a few more weeks to go if you have not caught up yet with this show. It's slightly edited, but for the most part, this is not a show that overly utilizes the streaming avenue and shows a lot of nudity and has a ton of swear words. It's cleaned up a little bit for television, but honestly, this is a fairly standard broadcast type show, and maybe it's a little long for the time slot, so ABC may trim a couple of minutes as well for content. But I think the show you get on ABC is going to be almost the same as you get on Hulu, which is pretty rare these days. A lot of people will use that streaming angle to throw in unnecessary things just because they can. This show doesn't do that, and in fact, this show does a lot of things very well that we'll talk about here soon. But yes, if you have not caught up on Hulu, you can catch new episodes Mondays on ABC, and this has already been renewed for season 2, just a few weeks, I think, after it premiered. They renewed it for season 2. So obviously a lot of love behind this show. So we'll talk about this here in a second. First, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are a Dan Reviews It subscriber, thank you so much for that. Love it when you guys check out my stuff and return to the channel. But if you're not, please consider subscribing and click that notification bell too, so you get the alerts for all my new video drops. And like I said, this is from Dan Fogelman, who created This Is Us. And I was actually going through his list of credits, and my God, he's created some really, really great television over the last 15 years. He created the comedy The Neighbors with Jamie Gertz about 15 years ago, and that ran, I think, 3 years on ABC. That was funny. And then he's an executive producer on Only Murders in the Building. I don't know if he was one of the co-creators. I know Steve Martin co-created it with a couple of people, but anyway, he's one of the executive producers and has been since the beginning. Obviously, that is a huge hit and a standout. And then, of course, This Is Us. So this shares, like I mentioned up top, a lot of similarities to This Is Us in terms of the storytelling. There's intensive use of flashbacks here, a lot of family drama going on, and at the head of it all is Sterling K. Brown. So the basic premise here is we're a few years after a big doomsday event in Colorado. Well, all over the world, really, but the series takes place in Colorado. And so we have some United States Secret Service agents, including Xavier Collins, which is Sterling K. Brown, and he is trying to discover the truth behind the killing of the president of the U.S. And we see that I don't think it's in the first scene, but it's in maybe the third or fourth scene of the first episode. It's the whole premise of the show. So it's not really a spoiler. But James Marsden plays the president, and we see him in, I think, every episode. Maybe he's absent from one. But because of the heavy use of flashbacks, of course, he utilized in This Is Us, we have James Marsden appearing in many, many episodes as the president, as we learn more about his relationship with Xavier and his relationship with his family and all of that. You also have Julianne Nicholson here as Samantha, the world's richest self-made woman, and at this point, the chief decision maker, where they are. And then you have a few other people that I didn't really recognize, but Sarah Stahl is a psychotherapist and grief specialist that is dealing specifically with Xavier. And we see Nicole Bryden Bloom as another member of the President's Secret Service detail. And there's a few other people in, recurring roles, but that's sort of the main cast there. And so Xavier finds himself under suspicion for the death of the president. And, we as the audience don't know exactly what is happening either until we get some further details in those flashbacks. And Xavier's got his own family drama going on as well. And there's a lot of secrets happening. So this is a very, very intense show, and it's well told. It really, This Is Us sort of set a benchmark, I think, certainly in broadcast television, with the intensity of scenes and all the dynamics with the different characters and how it linked them all together. Of course, that was more of a family, but we had people from the outside coming in as well. But this reminds me, like a little bit maybe of a cross between This Is Us and Lost. And the reason I say that is because for a lot of this season, we, the audience, don't really know what's going on. We know what we think we know, and we know what they have chosen to tell us. But in terms of, hard facts about characters, about situations, we know exactly what they let us in on and nothing more. And so each episode, it unfolds a little bit and gets more intense, and we learn more about this character and that character and this dynamic and whatever. And there's only 8 episodes here because it's a Hulu show. It's not an ABC show where we might have gotten 10 or even 13 episodes. I think the day of the 22 episode drama, unless you're like Law and Order or something, I think that's probably gone by the wayside. But I love that ABC is showing this because look, not everybody has Hulu, and I get that. And they did the same with Only Murders in the Building. Every summer they show last season's Only Murders or whatever. And I think that's great because this is a show that deserves to be seen by as wide an audience as possible. And for maybe the older folks that don't have Hulu, or people that, are all streamered out and don't have it, but still have, broadcast or whatever, check this out. I know they've already aired a couple of them on ABC, but anyway, the storytelling here is just great. And Sterling K. Brown, I mean, he's obviously one of the great television actors in recent years. He's made his way a little bit into the movies as well. He's great in American Fiction. But he is the exact type of person you need for this role. Somebody who can play intense, but can also have a little bit of a more a darker side, a more layered side to the character than maybe somebody else would, because this character demands a lot of, I think, intense, scrutiny with his layers. And he displays that beautifully, but he's also a family man, so we see sort of a different side of that character with the family. And even still in the flashbacks, we see a different side again in his interactions with the president. Sterling K. Brown plays all of them great. I would absolutely not be surprised if we see an Emmy nomination for him with this episode. But that is not to say that Julianne Nicholson isn't doing a great job either. In fact, I just saw her in a movie like a week ago. I forget what it was, but she's always popping up, and she's great in this. Really, really intense as well when she needs to be. And her character, I feel like, knows more than they are letting the audience know, but you see that in her, that she is sort of restraining herself from telling certain characters what they don't need to know at that point in time. And as a result, we, the audience, a lot of times are left in the dark as well. But you can see her sort of brain working and the intensity of whatever she's dealing with, that we eventually, will find out. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with the season 2 of this. But I am on board for the ride. I think it was episode 6 maybe, was one of the most intense episodes of television I'd seen in a little while. So this is a winner. Now, everything is not all roses here. I will say there's a heavy use at the end of almost every episode of this really, I'm going to say, corny, sort of down-tempo version of like an upbeat 80s song, like Eye of the Tiger. Another Day in Paradise isn't an upbeat song, but that's what they use in the first episode. Lends itself because of the name, but the Phil Collins song, Another Day in Paradise. But there's a heavy, intense, like 80s music vibe coming off of the president, James Marsden. He tries to get his son into it, whatever. But in every episode, there's some sort of song mentioned, like We Built This City. And then at the end of the episode, over like a montage or whatever, there's like a down-tempo version, like melancholy version of that song. It's a little bit corny, I have to say, And they probably did that a little bit in This Is Us too, but certainly not every episode. But just checking in on where every character is at the end of the episode, and set with the backdrop of that song. It's a corny way to end every episode. I have to say, I didn't love that part. But other than that, look, I think for 8 episodes, I can't believe they crammed so much story into it. To be completely honest, this is one of the better shows of the season for sure so far. I will leave Paradise with an A minus, and you can check this out on Hulu. Season 1 is streaming now, and season 2 already announced, and hopefully coming, maybe next year. Hulu's usually pretty good with that. Only Murders is every year on the dot. The Bear is every year on the dot. So hopefully, come early next year, we will get season 2 of Paradise. All right, that will do it for now. Thank you so much for watching Dan Reviews It, and I will see you next time. Bye.